there appeared now but one alternative left me, which was to offer up a prayer to heaven for the protection of that being who has power to stay the assassin's hand, and who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above what we can ask or think. Sincerely, in the language of Scripture, I can say, I found trouble and sorrow, then called upon the name of the Lord. I remained on my knees until the inhuman wretches had completed their murderous task, and left none but myself to lament the fate of those who, but 24 hours before, were animated with the pleasing prospects of a quick voyage and a speedy return to the bosoms of their families. The wretch by whom I had been thrice promised protection, and who seemed to reign chief among them, again approached me with hands crimsoned with the blood of my murdered countrymen, and, with a savage smile, once more repeated his assurances that, if I would but become reconciled to my situation, I had nothing to fear. There was indeed something truly terrific in the appearance of this man, or rather monster, as he ought to be termed. He was of a swarthy complexion, nearly 6 feet in height. His eyes were large, black and penetrating. His expression was remarkable, and when silent his looks were sufficient to declare his meaning. He wore around his waist a leathern belt, to which was suspended a sword, a brace of pistols, and a dirk. He was, as I was afterward informed, the acknowledged chief among the pirates. All appeared to stand in awe of him, and no one dared to disobey his commands. Such, dear brother, was a character who had promised me protection if I would become reconciled to my situation, in other words, subservient to his will. But whatever might have been his intentions, although now in his power, without visible friend to protect me, yet such full reliance did I place in the Supreme Being, who sees and knows all things, and who has promised his protection to the faithful in the hour of their tribulation, that I felt myself in a less degree of danger than you or anyone would probably imagine. As the day drew near to a close, I was conducted to a small temporary hut or cabin, where I was informed I might repose peaceably for the night, which I did without being disturbed by anyone. This was another opportunity that I did not suffer to pass unimproved to pour out my soul to that Being who had already given me reasons to believe that he did not say to the house of Jacob, "Seek you me in vain." Oh, that all sincere Christians would in every difficulty make him their refuge! He is a hopeful stay. Early in the morning ensuing, I was visited by the wretch alone whom I had viewed as chief of the murderous band. As he entered and cast his eyes upon me, his countenance relaxed from its usual ferocity to a feigned smile. Without speaking a word, he seated himself on a bench that the cabin contained, and drawing a table towards him, leaned upon it, resting his cheek upon his hand. His eyes for some moments were fixed in steadfast gaze on the ground, while his whole soul appeared to be devoured by the most diabolical thoughts. In a few moments he arose from his seat and hastily traversed the hut, apparently in extreme agitation, and not infrequently fixing his eyes steadfastly upon me. But that Providence, which, while it protects the innocent, never suffers the wicked to go unpunished, interposed to save me and to deliver me from the hands of this remorseless villain, at the very instant when in all probability he intended to have destroyed my happiness forever. On a sudden the pirate's bugle was sounded, which, as I was afterward informed, was the usual signal of a sail in sight. The ruffian monster thereupon, without uttering a word, left my apartment, and hastened with all speed to the place of their general rendezvous on such occasions. Flattered by the pleasing hope that Providence might be about to complete her work of mercy, and was conducting to the dreary island some friendly aid to rescue me from my perilous situation, I mustered courage to ascend to the roof of my hovel, to discover, if possible, the cause of the alarm, and what might be the issue. A short distance from the island I espied a sail, which appeared to be lying to, and a few miles therefrom, to the windward, another, which appeared to be bearing down under the press of sail for the former. In a moment the whole gang of pirates, with the exception of 4, were in their boats, and with their oars, etc., were making every possible exertion to reach the vessel nearest to their island. But by the time they had effected their object, the more distant vessel, which proved to be a British sloop of war disguised, had approached them within fair gunshot, and probably knowing or suspecting their characters, opened their ports and commenced a destructive fire upon them. The pirates were now, as nearly as I could judge with the naked eye, Thrown into great confusion, every possible exertion appeared to have been made by them to reach the island, and escape from their pursuers. Some jumped from their boats and attempted to gain the shore by swimming, but those were shot in the water, and the remainder, who remained in their boats, were very soon after overtaken and captured by the 2 well-manned boats dispatched from the sloop of war for that purpose, and soon I had the satisfaction to see them all on board of the sloop, and in the power of those from whom I was fully satisfied that they should meet with the punishment due to their crimes. In describing the characters of this piratical band of robbers, I have, dear brother, represented them as wretches of the most frightful and ferocious appearance, bloodthirsty monsters, who in acts of barbarity ought only to be ranked with cannibals, who delight to feast on human flesh. Rendered desperate by their crimes, and aware that they should find no mercy if so unfortunate as to fall into the hands of those to whom they show no mercy, to prevent a possibility of detection and the just execution of the laws, wantonly destroy the lives of every one, however innocent, who may be so unfortunate as to fall into their power. Such, indeed, brother, is the true character of the band of pirates, to the number of 30 or 40, by whom it was my misfortune to be captured, with the exception of a single one, who possessed a countenance less savage, and had the appearance of possessing a heart less callous to the feelings of humanity. Fortunately for me, as divine providence ordered, this person was one of the 4 who remained on the island, and on whom the command devolved, after the unexpected disaster which had deprived them forever of so great a portion of their comrades. From this man, after the capture of the murderous tyrant, to whose commands he had been compelled to yield, I received the kindest treatment, and assurances that I should be restored to liberty and to my friends when an opportunity should present, or when it could be consistently done with the safety of their lives and liberty. This unhappy man, for such he declared himself to be, took an opportunity to indulge me with a partial relation of a few of the most extraordinary incidents of his life. He declared himself an Englishman by birth, but his real name and place of nativity was, he said, a secret he would never disclose. Although I must, said he, acknowledge myself by profession a pirate, yet I can boast of respectable parentage, and the time once was when I myself sustained an unimpeachable character. Loss of property, through the treachery of those whom I considered friends, and in whom I had placed implicit confidence, was what first led me to and induced me to prefer this mode of life to any of a less criminal nature. But although I voluntarily became the associate of a band of wretches, the most wicked and unprincipled perhaps on earth, yet I solemnly declare that I have not in any one instance personally deprived an innocent fellow creature of life. It was an act of barbarity at which my heart ever recoiled, and against which I always protested. With the property, I always insisted we ought to be satisfied, without the destruction of the lives of such who were probably the fathers of families, and who had never offended us. But our gang was, as you may suppose, chiefly composed of and governed by men without principle, who appeared to delight in the shedding of blood, and whose only excuse has been that by acting with too much humanity in the sparing of life, they might thereby be exposed and themselves arraigned to answer for their crimes at an earthly tribunal. You can have no conception, madam, continued he, of the immense property that has been piratically captured, and of the number of lives that have been destroyed by this gang alone, and all without the loss of a single one in our party until yesterday, when, by an unexpected circumstance, our number has been reduced, as you see, from 35 to 4. This island has not been our constant abiding place, but the bodies of such as have suffered here have always been conveyed a considerable distance from the shore, and thrown into the sea, where they are probably devoured by sharks, as not a single one has ever been known afterward to drift on our shores. The property captured has not been long retained on this island, but shipped to a neighboring port, where we have an agent to dispose of it. Of the great number of vessels captured by us, continued he, you are the first and only female that has been so unfortunate as to fall into our hands, and from the moment that I first saw you in our power, well knowing the brutal disposition of him whom we acknowledged our chief, I trembled for your safety, and viewed you as one deprived perhaps of the protection of a husband or brother, to become the victim of an unpitying wretch, whose pretended regard for your sex and his repeated promises of protection were hypocritical, a mere mask to lull your fears until he could effect your ruin. His hellish design